If we can manage to limit your blunders, then you'll be able to capitalize more on your opponent's blunders. Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So I was requested to make a video on how to stop blundering. There's no formula for how to stop blundering, but I would like to go through 5 things today, which I think will help you to prevent blunders.
Wonders, Lisa, or blunder?
I think blundering is part of chess, and the more high-level chess you watch, actually, the more you will realize that even grandmasters blunder. A blunder is a very, very big game-changing mistake. So I'm sure on the chess.com game review, you will have seen many different categories, including inaccuracy, mistake, blunder, and miss, and these all mean different things. Essentially, blunder is the worst kind of mistake that you can make, like giving up material for free or hanging a checkmate or something pretty serious and game-changing. So the first and probably most tiring thing to hear is that you'll need to stop hanging pieces. And it is exhausting to hear this. In order to stop hanging pieces, we need to evaluate potential interactions between pieces that are all over the board, not just the one piece that we're trying not to hang. So I'm not just talking about leaving pieces undefended, which is of course a problem. And if this is a problem you're struggling with, then the first port of call is board vision and tactics. So board vision is kind of your capacity to review all of the things going on at once in the board, noticing how all of the pieces are playing their role and what each piece is looking at. So the most common ways I see my students hanging pieces are by playing bad intermezzos or intermediate moves or danger levels or whatever you want to call them, by falling for a remove the defender or overload tactic, by having loose pieces. So if you've ever seen a Gotham Chess YouTube video, I'm sure you have heard about danger levels. You can also call this a Zwischenzug or an intermezzo, which is essentially an in-between move. So it's a move we play instead of something else. Usually it's in the case of a piece that's being attacked. Instead of moving the attacked piece, we play a different move. Now this move has to attack a piece of equal or higher value to be worth addressing. So if our knight is attacked, we would have to attack something of equal or higher value to a knight. And of course, checks are included in these because the king has to be addressed if he's under attack. You know, checks are forcing moves. So this is a game from a student of mine, and here her knight is attacked. And in this position, she tried to play danger levels. So here she played bishop to g5 because she's attacking the queen. So yes, the queen is a higher value piece than the knight. There's actually a couple of reasons why this particular danger levels doesn't work. There's f6, which not only blocks the attack, but also attacks 2 pieces with a pawn at the same time, meaning she would only be able to save 2. And there's also just b takes c. And this is because after taking the knight, we have a tempo on the queen. And if we take the queen, then they take with a tempo on the king. So if we count all of the material after this happens, we are down 5 points. So that's quite a lot. This is a blunder, and it's pretty much hanging a piece, but in a more indirect way than just leaving it undefended. So I want to show you another example of when danger levels doesn't work. So actually this time it's instead of capturing a piece. Yes, our knight is hanging, so if we captured, they would capture, but we would also be able to capture again. Now in this position, our king is very, very weak, so we have a worse position, and this is why the eval bar is telling us this is very good for black. But let's just talk about the material here, because we're talking about hanging pieces. And so in this position, my student played queen to h5, and this threatens checkmate in 1, obviously. Now this is a checkmate that beginners absolutely love to go for. I understand it's a quick attack, very straightforward, but unfortunately most of the time it can be defended, and there are a lot of ways to defend this. Other than just playing h6 and saying you have to move the knight, they can simply play knight to f6 in this position, which not only moves away the piece that is attacked by a pawn, but it also attacks our queen and covers the mate at the same time. So there's a lot of good moves here for black. And so instead of recapturing a piece or capturing a piece, we have made the mistake of playing an in-between move that doesn't work. We usually do want to just recapture a piece after they've taken one of our pieces, but it is definitely worth checking. Honestly, one of the biggest mistakes my students make is they try to make chess more fancy. They try to play fancy moves. And what I tell them is chess is already hard enough without you overcomplicating things. It is very unlikely that your calculation skills are good enough to understand all of the complications from a position where you leave multiple pieces hanging. If you play simple chess, you will get simpler positions. I fear that danger levels has kind of been marketed as like the biggest chess trick that Gotham Chess taught people. But honestly, a lot of the times it doesn't work. Understanding when danger levels or intermezzos do work is quite complicated. Here is an example where our knight is attacked, but it has no good place to go to. We can't move it forward without it being taken, and if we move it backwards, it is going to be the worst piece on the board. What we would love is for our knight to be on e4. So in order to do so, we can play danger levels. We can take the knight, because if they take our knight, we'll take a bishop. And now we're up a piece. This is when danger levels works. Here instead we can play bishop takes knight, and after bishop takes knight again, we can play knight to e4. So not only can we put our knight soon on this outpost on c5, but our knight is in a great position. We're attacking the bishop on f6, and we didn't have to move it to b1 or to a2, which would have been so sad. The next way I see my students hanging pieces is with the remove the defender tactic. So I see this happen an awful lot when they bring out a piece to attack a queen, especially like this that is defended by a knight. But as you can see, white can very easily remove the defender by simply capturing the knight with the tempo on the queen. So yes, instead of moving our queen, we played a danger levels move here as white, but it's actually because we have a remove the defender tactic. And I know it's annoying that all of these things have their own names, but that's just for the sake of you being able to identify a pattern and learn it and have it in your memory so that you're not going to make these mistakes. So here, obviously, black can capture our queen, but we will capture a queen. And when all is said and done, we are up a whole piece. When you are leading the attack with a piece who is defended by another piece, you have to be very careful to make sure that the defending piece cannot be kicked away with a pawn or captured with another piece. Otherwise, you will end up losing more material than you are exchanging for. Another way you can blunder a piece is by having an overloaded pawn. So this is a pawn that is protecting two pieces at the same time and is actually not capable of doing so. So let's say bishop takes bishop. We are forced to recapture with this pawn, leaving the knight on d4 completely undefended. So as you can see, the pawn was overloaded because it was not able to do both of the jobs required of it at the same time. It may seem like your pieces are defended, but tactically they are not. You can also hang a piece simply by having loose pieces. A loose piece is just a piece that is not defended by anything else, but is also not currently being attacked. So for example, this knight here on h5 is a loose piece. No one's attacking him right now, but also there isn't a defender if a fork comes up. And that is what happened in this game. It's a very famous game. So I will let you comment down below if you recognize it. But here there is simply queen to d1. And this is a fork because both the loose bishop on d6 and the loose knight on h5 are attacked, and there is no way to defend both at the same time. So this is just an immediate piece blunder by a grandmaster in a chess game. LPDO is a acronym coined, I think, by John Nunn. It's supposed to mean loose pieces drop off, so you should keep in mind that your pieces should be defended and well placed. The problem with humans is we always want to do things before we are ready, and this is why I see my students always wanting to play crazy chess moves that they don't understand because they cannot calculate them, and they clearly are not quite there at understanding danger levels or understanding all of these tactics. And so the best thing to do is to practice them, of course, also to play long chess games, because if you're playing longer games with a longer time control, then you have more time to at least try to calculate these ideas. And instead of having a blitz game where you have 3 minutes and you cannot calculate anything and you're just winging it and you're just saying, do you know what, maybe it will work out and maybe it won't, he'll probably just take it. No, you need to catch yourself before you do something risky and put yourself in a worse position than you were in. Number 2 of how to stop blundering is to stop sacrificing pieces. I see a lot of people very, very eager to sacrifice a knight or a bishop for a kingside attack without having considered their opponent's resources. If you are not capable of clear calculation, then there's a very likely chance that you'll miss a defensive opportunity from your opponent in thinking that your sacrifice works, but in reality, you're just going to be down a piece. It is likely that your intuition just isn't honed enough and developed enough for you to be sacrificing pieces without knowing for sure that it's good. Knowing when to sacrifice is basically, will you get your material back, or will you get compensation in terms of an attack or a checkmate, or will you get even more than that? Because sometimes we can get maybe 1 or 2 pawns for a piece, but we get great initiative. That is a good opportunity to sacrifice. And sometimes we'll sacrifice a piece and we'll get 2 pieces back, but sometimes we'll sacrifice a piece and we'll get nothing. Here's an example from a classical game that I played, and white has a very beautiful position in a Sicilian, and it almost looks like there's a Greek gift here, right? It kind of looks like maybe you should be able to play bishop takes h7, and maybe you should be able to bring the knight up, and maybe you should be able to deliver checkmate. And if you're kind of looking at this without arrows and without being able to move the pieces, you might be able to convince yourself that there's an actual attack here. And there is if you play a move like queen c2, which is kind of counterintuitive because we're lining it up with the rook. But actually there is nothing here after this Greek gift. It simply doesn't work. The reason for which is bishop takes g5. Even after queen h5 check doesn't work because of bishop h6. If we had a slightly different position where our opponent had blundered and moved their bishop back to defend g7 instead of defending g5, this is now a good time for a Greek gift because our knight is defended once and attacked once, so it cannot be captured. And now there are serious threats with mate in 2 unless you sacrifice the queen. So this is a time when a Greek gift would work. Obviously, sometimes they're more complicated with this. This is made simpler by the fact that the knights cannot hop over and defend the checkmate. But yeah, this position really does look like there should be something here. And actually my opponent in the game thought that there was something here. So he played f5 in this position. He did not play a6. He played f5 because he was afraid of the Greek gift sacrifice. But in fact, the Greek gift sacrifice is not there. There are a lot of thematic sacrifices in different openings, and you should study these and look into times when it does and does not work so that you can start to train your intuition and figure it out when is a good time to play bishop takes h7 check and moves like this without just giving away material for no reason. Because you have to remember that if you let your opponent consolidate, then they will just be up a full piece at the end. Number 3 on how to stop blundering is stop getting yourself checkmated. Now, it's very common for beginners and lower rated players to overestimate the safety of their king and to think that there is nothing to worry about when in reality there is. It's also much harder to defend than to attack, which is why beginners love to play queen h5, knight g5, and try to checkmate as soon as possible. You are definitely not helping yourself by pushing pawns in front of your king, removing your defending pieces. And so let's take a look at times when we should be defending instead of attacking. So the safest a king can be is usually castled with all 3 pawns still in front, not having moved, and with a knight on f3 or on this square right by him because it defends any attacks. So this is kind of our ideal setup, and you can see that white's king is very, very happy even though black has pushed these pawns. Okay, this might feel a little bit uncomfortable. Moves like g4 might feel scary. Let's just say g4 is played, but actually, as you can see, any pawn push, we're just gonna meet it by capturing it, and we're happy. And what's he gonna do? Throw another pawn? I'll take that one too. These pawns can be scary. Some people say that pawns are just in the way. They want to get them out of these lines so they can attack with the heavier pieces. But these pawns are really, really great foot soldiers. They are going to keep our king safe, and that is why we shouldn't move them unless absolutely necessary. Let's look at almost exactly the same position, but with these pawns moved. Now the difference is that white wasted time pushing these pawns instead of going for the attack on the black king, and that means that black is now faster in the attack and can play moves like f4, which are actually a threat. As you can see, these pawns are weaker even if we play king g2 to defend this. This whole situation is not super comfortable. The one thing that I see beginners often do is as soon as they have got their king castled, they've got their pieces developed, they kind of push random pawns. And I know we see grandmasters play a4, h4 all the time. We see them pushing all sorts of pawns, sometimes a random g4 or g5, but you need to understand that you are not a grandmaster and that they have much more nuanced and better understanding of king safety than you do. So usually when you have pushed pawns in front of your king, it creates what we call a hook. This can just be one pawn here, which essentially means that if the opponent thrusts their pawns at you, your pawn kind of gets hooked like a fishing line. Now, of course, you don't want to be getting back rank checkmated, so sometimes playing a move like h3 or h6 is necessary, and sometimes it's also necessary to kick a piece off of a g4 or g5, but we don't want to be pushing these pawns without any good reason. Furthermore, the absolute biggest king safety mistake I see my students making is not castling in time. They will start attacking before they get castled, their king won't be safe, and then they will pay for it later. They will never castle. Tip number 4 is stop trading pieces. You might not think of trading as being a blunder, but sometimes it is. Taking off a pair of knights or the queens at the wrong time can swing the eval bar in the opposite direction. Of course, this is more nuanced than just not hanging pieces, but trading pieces can be just as bad for your position. I have seen beginner guides that say all equal trades are good, trade any bishop for any knight, trade rooks, trade queens, and it's just not good advice. Not all pieces are worth the same amount, even if all knights are worth 3 points and all bishops are worth 3 points. On like a more nuanced level, how do you know if a piece should be traded or not? Generally speaking, you want to trade when you have less space than your opponent. You want to trade when you are the one being attacked, not when you are the one attacking. You want to be trading your inactive pieces or your less good pieces for your opponent's good pieces. So how do you know if a piece is good or not? For a piece to be good, it needs to be active, well placed, on a good square, and actively participating in the game. Not clumsy or stuck on the back rank, doing nothing with nothing to look at, okay? If your opponent's piece has no good prospects, why would you give your good piece for their bad piece? Okay, so here is actually a nice example. White's bishop is not a good piece. It has literally nowhere good that it can be because all of our pawns are on light squares. There's no future for this piece. Thankfully, we can trade it off for another piece, and Black's bishop is, also not the best piece, but it's better than our piece because it has a longer vision. So thankfully we can force this trade because the bishop is pinned to the king. And I feel much more optimistic about this game after the bishops come off. When we trade pieces, they are gone forever. We are not playing Crazy House. You might really regret giving up your 2 bishops for 2 knights for no reason when you have an endgame and you need to stop passed pawns. Most significantly, I can see some students trade down when they have an attack, which is something you absolutely should not do. In this position, White is actually only up 1 point of material, but as we can see, White's king is a lot safer than Black's king, and White should have a forced checkmate. Okay, I don't expect you to find checkmate in 5, but we should be looking, at all checks, essentially. So obviously it is Black's turn. They play bishop f5 to block the check. So here my student said, oh, I'm up 1 point of material. I guess I will just win some more material and win the endgame. And so she played queen takes d5, after which point we're actually not that winning anymore. This is now a much, much harder position to win than looking at all of these nice forcing moves and checks and captures. So this is actually a lot easier of a position to play. Even if we're not checking the enemy ourselves, we really have nothing to worry about. Our king is so safe. There are no more checks. It's going to take way too long to bring other pieces in. The bishop is pinned. And so, honestly, really, we're going to have checkmate very soon, even if we do not find the forced mate in 5, because there is just really no good move for Black to play without giving up extreme amounts of material. So we absolutely don't want to be trading down in cases like this. I don't think it's dramatic to call queen takes d5 a blunder. Like, objectively, I think this is a blunder. Number 5 is just you need more time, okay? You're going to blunder less the more time you have. There is a saying in chess, which is long think, wrong think, which is when you go into a very, very long calculation in like classical chess and then you end up playing a much worse move than you initially thought of playing just because you had either spooked yourself or convinced yourself that something else was good. But in general, you're going to play much higher quality chess if you're playing a classical game or a rapid game over a blitz or a bullet game. A lot of blunders come in time pressure. Have you ever heard people say that the clock is a piece? The clock is very important because it's it's actually one of the only ways we can win or lose in chess, right? It's going to be checkmate, resignation, or losing on time. And so the clock is actually very, very important. If you find yourself constantly running out of time, honestly, the only solution is to start playing longer time controls, and especially to be playing time controls with increment, because if you're playing 3+0 or 5+0, 10+0, you are just going to run out of time at some point. You're also going to play lower quality chess. You're going to be stressed about the clock, and you're probably going to play worse. You can definitely speed up your chess play by practicing tactics, but just giving yourself more time and improving at long form chess will also improve your overall chess, and you will get better at blitz as well. I really hope this video was helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions about it down below. Feel free to request videos either over on the community tab or in the comments of my videos, and I will try to make them as best as I can. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye guys.